it is what it is, and the Eagles had a chance to take advantage, and they couldn't. And
Ooh.
I think like Eagles got exactly what they wanted Saturday night. They got Dallas to win because they knew they could leapfrog Detroit in that situation, and they could win out and still win the East. And they show up, and like Eagles fans that have been waiting for this a long time. I'm not going to be able to tell you anything revelatory. I think the number one problem with this defense is personnel. And I don't think that's changing. And a number of those plays, whether it's them not being able to sort out a two-man concept, them DB getting shook by Michael Carter out in the field, like a bunch of little issues. Ringo at the goal line, totally flat-footed, giving up inside release on 4th and 4. These are not just things that they happen to other teams, right? Like you watch around the league, any of those things happen on a weekly basis, but they happen so spectacularly bad with the Eagles. Like Ringo didn't have a shot. He was totally flat-footed. Michael Carter shook Ricks so badly, it was like it wasn't even the two-man game. A guy almost broke an ankle. Like there's just so many situations on the back end. That toss to Connor in the second half, the angles are so bad. The run support's so bad. And, this defensive front, I feel bad for them because they're actually a strength on most teams. You can unlock
100%.
that strength. They're not who they were last year. And we said that coming in.
Coupled with what, like you're saying, they're not coupled with anything on the back end.
It's the compounding effect of, the back end being shit and not being able to stop the run with a light box anymore because the backers are so bad. And you get Avonte Maddox back, and usually with Howie Roseman, when he sends somebody to rescue, you're like, oh, it works out. Like that lifeline worked. But Robert Quinn last year didn't work, and I was behind the Robert Quinn thing. It didn't work, but it wasn't a necessity. This year, to stop the bleeding, the Shaq Leonard thing had to work out. It's not going to work out. The Maddox thing coming back, the Byard thing, Maddox, Dortch is the guy's name. He got beat by a guy named Dortch, who's actually a pretty good player. It's just a funny name.
Yeah.
But you think he's coming to the rescue, it's going to save the day, but like some of the biggest plays that you gave up were the guy that you were waiting to come back on, and the same thing with Byard. You sign him, the coverage hadn't been great. Shaq Leonard doesn't look like he magically got faster or younger looking. And so the personnel issues on defense are going to be the reason you lose in the playoffs. Hey, Eagles could make a run. I know I said last week after the Seattle game, the world's not ending. You're 10-4 or whatever it is. Most years, if you have a chance to win the division at the end of the year, you're pretty excited. I think 2017 made things a little bit tougher for the Eagles, right? Because, the bar's been raised. But now you have joined the pack. Like you're part of the pack. And are you a good team? I don't know. Can you win playoff games? Yeah, you can. People want to put it on the offense at times and the whole thing, but there was a stretch of this game where Arizona had the ball for the entire first half basically, and into the second half where they came out and just did what they wanted and ran the ball. So even when they were down, I worried because they were getting exactly what they wanted offensively. You had that pick six was basically a gift. It was a great run back, but it was a gift. And, the worst part about that was they had just got done with a long drive ahead of that, and then you got to go back out and play defense, and defense can't get off the field. So the Eagles' offense, they were scoring too quick. Like the defense barely had any time
Can't control
on the bench.
Game.
And so part of that is
run some half court.
Run the ball.
Run some half court
like
offense.
even if the other stuff is working in a game like this, and you can take it from this team. You can just take their food. Take their food. It might take a little longer, but take their food and give your weakness a chance to catch their breath. But instead, I think Jalen Hurts ran the ball in the third quarter on a design run. It's their ninth run of the game. And so, this is something that keeps popping up for them. And another thing that popped up for them is trying to ice the game where they kick a field goal and not score a touchdown. Mm-hmm. They get a holding penalty on Jordan Mailata. And they've had this stuff with Kelsey before the field goal against the Bills. And there's a number of drives throughout the year where even their strength is hurting them a little bit up front in these situations where you got to close it out. So I can't point to one thing. The offensive scheme has devolved from last year. We've called it an imitation of last year. The defensive scheme is totally different. The personnel has changed completely. And most Super Bowl teams don't have to replace 2 coordinators. You know, like watch teams that have to replace a coordinator off a Super Bowl run. Usually, they're still in it, maybe because the other side of the ball is still intact.
Kansas City.
But when you lose 2 sides of the ball, basically from a mindset and a game planning standpoint, it's going to be hard. And
like the Chiefs without Spags.
Yeah.
EB.
It'd be like if Spags left the Chiefs
After the Super Bowl.
and Eric Bieniemy left after
Yes.
the Super Bowl. Like that's how you'd be talking about the Chiefs the same way, and they are in a lot of circles because these teams seem similar.
What if Dom was secretly giving out plays on the sideline?
And Dom not being there, like ever since Dom hasn't been there, they've been really struggling. So maybe when he gets back, he's gonna get back for the playoffs, right?
Right. Playoffs or
Playoffs?
Okay.
But the bottom line, if we're talking about things that really suck for this team right now, it's the personnel on defense. There's just no way around it. And you know, like when you lose in the playoffs, if you lose in the playoffs, we will be saying it's because of the defense.
What would they have to do to patch up right now at this point in the season?
We've thought through all the scenarios.
Time machine.
But I'm saying, so you as a coach, like, what are you doing differently in practice, or what are you doing to maybe get your guys up, or whatever?
I would say try different guys, but they got guys off the street right now. You know, like there's just you can't dip into the bag any deeper. It's like when you're looking for something in your backpack and you've checked every pocket. It's just Ringo. It's just Rick.
The same thing again.
I don't think there's an escape defensively, and going into the playoffs is all going to be about matchups. Like if you go down and play the Bucks, like that's no sure thing, but you can win that game. You go to Dallas. Like I still think you can beat the Cowboys, man, but you got to score, and that puts a lot of pressure on your offense. I don't know if you can beat the Niners.
No.
You know, and a team like the Rams, they're dangerous because of what you got going on the back end. The Packers, they're dangerous too. So every team can beat you.
The Rams' strengths don't couple with the Eagles' weakness as well for the Eagles.
Every team in the dance can beat you, so you've joined the pack. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, like people want me to say something about the Eagles that might give them some hope. Here's the hope: you're in the playoffs. You can make a run. You know, we made a run with a backup quarterback a couple years ago, but that team was much better. And that team also, I can remember a time when, you know, Kyler Murray having the ball at the end of the game, and they should have let Dortch score because he was going to score, right? Yeah. Instead, you end up having to chase a touchdown with 30 seconds to go. I remember a time when teams didn't want to be in the Cardinals' position at the link trying to close out a game. I remember that. I remember it in 2017.
I remember it.
You didn't want to be...
I was on the other side of it.
Yeah, you didn't want to be running a 2-minute drill at the end of the game against our group, and you didn't want to be running a 2-minute drill against that team last year. But the things that you've done from a personnel standpoint and just the way the cookies crumble with the injuries and the scheme, now, if you're Arizona... You're feeling like Philly felt last year on defense in those 2-minute situations. Like we are playing a team that is food right now. And when you look at the defense of the Eagles, they're a bottom 5 defense right now. Like I would challenge you to find a defense that's performed worse than this defense over the last month of the season. EPA per play, they're down there. They're in the bottom 3.
30th.
Over the last what, Nolan?
Since week 12.
Since week 12, they're 30th in EPA per play on defense. So teams making runs with defenses like that, a lot of people like look over here at the Jalen Hurts thing. That's a shiny object. Jalen Hurts is good enough to be your quarterback. Jalen Hurts is good enough to be your quarterback for the next 5 years. If you end up looking somewhere else for a quarterback, you know, I don't think you can repeat the Carson Wentz, Jalen Hurts thing, and I don't think you should. I think it's about the defense, and you can fix it next offseason, but there's nobody walking through that door. Something you realize in the NFL after a certain point is like they locked the door. Yeah. It's just us.
Makes me very happy to be a Bears fan because you watch that game and you watch the Bears defense and you're like, we got dudes. We got dudes all over the place. Different types of dudes.
And also, Jonathan Gannon, somebody just put this in the chat. I can't talk about this without talking about Jonathan Gannon. We came into the game and said Jonathan Gannon, number one, has done a great job despite the memes, despite the shots, the verticals, like his mannerisms. You know, he's an easy target, and people got after him, just like they got after Sirianni, just like they got after Dan Campbell. By the way, Antonio Pierce talking about choking somebody until they go to sleep or whatever he said a week ago. I got no problem with it, just like I had no problem with the Dan Campbell knee thing. So go back and look at your timeline when Dan Campbell said he was biting kneecaps.
Yikes. I don't want to name names.
I don't want to name names, but some people made that a big deal. Me?
No.
No, I didn't.
No.
What about
I was quite the opposite.
But I'm saying we're not naming names.
What about the Bills coach, the Al Qaeda thing?
It's a little far.
He wore a red, white, and blue shirt last
They're
week.
4-0 since that speech.
But like I said, though,
Oh, here we go.
if you're whether you're a 9/11 truther like Rodgers or you're McDermott, win one for Osama. Like either one, you have a chance at redemption because Rodgers ran through. All it took was Rodgers running through on 9/11 with the flag, and everybody forgot about it. McDermott just needs to do that next year.
Was that 9/11?
Yes.
Yes.
God.
So here's the deal, man. Like the Eagles, if they want to get in, they're going to get in. But if they want to win games, the defense, the bleeding's got to stop. And Matt Patricia, who I think is a good coordinator, has got to pull some shit out of his ass.
AJ Brown not talking to the media. Big deal. Not a big deal.
It's a big deal. It feels like things are. I mean, like we've all had those days. I understand. I'm not attacking AJ Brown, but it's a canary in the coal mine. It's like things are bad right now. Yeah. So, but to finish what I was going to say, Jonathan Gannon coming in this game, you knew he'd know Jalen. Right, because he's practiced against him the whole thing. You knew their D coordinator, Rallis, was there. He knows this offense. But what I think you underestimate is how well he knows the defense and the personnel and what gives the personnel problems. And the Cardinals gave them problems all day. And Kyler Murray, ball barely touched the ground in the second half. Okay, James Conner might have had his best day this year as a Cardinal. Michael Carter had his best day as a Cardinal. And who's it happening to? All these things. It's the Eagles.
Kyler Murray throw.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gamer.
He's a gamer, dude.
Bend his arm.
I'm glad he's playing well because he gives them a lot of excitement next year. Because when you see this offense that the Cardinals have put out on the field the second half of the season, they're a real NFL
That's why
offense.
they're on my future America's team list.
Yeah.